we want to welcome all the devotees who come for this founder Acharya seminar. So we have with us His Grace Sureshwar Prabhu. Sureshwar Prabhu is a senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada. He joined ISKCON in the year 1970 in New York. And
no, Boston. Boston.
Sorry, in Boston. And so his services had been, like, he was distributing Srila Prabhupada's books, and services were connected with Srila Prabhupada's books. He was writing different articles in Back to Butter magazine, and for the past many years he has been especially teaching Srila Prabhupada's books in different places in the world. And in the year 2011, since 2011 he has been teaching this course on founder Acharya, the position of Srila Prabhupada in ISKCON. He has been conducting this course in different places in the world, and he is representing the GBC committee for the position of Srila Prabhupada in ISKCON, the position of founder Acharya in ISKCON. So we would like to welcome His Grace Sureshwar Prabhu in a traditional style by loudly chanting Hare.
Hare Krishna. Do I use that or I use this? Huh? That's for the audience?
Whichever.
Yeah, I'll use this. And then here's what we do. While I'm presenting, I ask you questions. And then when I sit down at the end for question and answer, then you ask me questions. So the good news is you don't need to take notes because I took all the notes, and at the end you get the notes electronically. But you can write down questions and comments, because that's what makes a satisfying lesson, a real robust question and answer period. Okay, so we can just, are you going to be here? Are you going to listen? Or?
I'll come in 10 minutes.
Okay, so at the end we're going to have somebody pass this around. Yeah? Thank you very much. Jai, Hare Krishna everybody. Welcome to our seminar, Srila Prabhupada, our founder Acharya. Notice our founder Acharya. Yes, he's my initiating spiritual master, but he's everybody's founder Acharya. And one purpose of this seminar is to deepen our understanding of what that means, that Prabhupada is the founder Acharya of ISKCON. Subtitle: Celebrating Srila Prabhupada's preeminent. That means most prominent, supreme, primary, main, foundational. You can substitute a lot of adjectives for preeminent. Preeminent position in ISKCON, as well as every follower's foundational relationship with him. During the course of the seminar, of course, this weekend we'll be presenting just the foundational lessons, the Sambandha lessons. But you will be hearing how Prabhupada, he provides the unity amidst our incredible diversity. This is an international society with people from all walks of life, ethnicities, religious backgrounds, philosophical backgrounds, you name it. So we have enough diversity, what we need is more unity, and the founder Acharya provides that. Okay? So what I'm going to show you is an overview of the whole journey. There's 10 lessons in the whole seminar. We'll be doing the first 3 this weekend. This is a rather famous photo of Srila Prabhupada. It's the photo that appeared on the cover of Back to Godhead magazine just after Prabhupada disappeared in November 77. In the next issue, it was called the He Lives Forever issue. And this is the photo they chose to put on there. Interesting story of how this photo came to be taken. Prabhupada started the movement, you may know, in New York City in 1966. And then in 1967, January, he went to the west coast of America, to San Francisco, to start the second branch, the second chapter. And the devotees in the first place, 26 Second Avenue, they were shocked that Swamiji, as they called him, had left. And they wrote him letters saying, "We're lost without you, we don't know what to do, we miss you." So Prabhupada wrote them back and said, "Well, just follow my instructions, study Bhagavad Gita, and take prasad, chant Hare Krishna, go distribute literature, and if you feel lonely for me, put my picture on my seat." And they said, "Well, we don't have a picture." So Prabhupada asked one of his San Francisco listeners, before he was even initiated, Roger Siegel. He became the husband of Jamuna Devi Dasi, who's been here over the years before she passed away. So Roger was a very good photographer, so he took many shots of Prabhupada, and a lot of them became famous, and this is one of them. So tonight we're going to be doing this lesson, The Spiritual Masters. You might recognize that title. It's the title of the very first chapter of the Sri Chaitanya Chaitamrita. And it's interesting that it's plural, spiritual masters. The first two words of the whole CC. Bande Gurun, Kaviraj Goswami says, I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual masters. Tomorrow night, same time, same place, we'll be looking at the evolution of the founder Acharya concept in our Gaudiya Sampradaya. A founder Acharya is like a super guru. He's not simply a spiritual master, he's a master of masters. And he founds something. He founds a whole fresh branch of a sampradaya. That's tomorrow night. And then finally, we begin to focus on our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, on Sunday. I hear that lesson will be at 6 p.m., a little earlier, from 6 to 8, because it's Sunday schedule. So we'll look at how Lord Chaitanya revealed to Srila Prabhupada his position as the founder Acharya, and then how Prabhupada revealed that to us. Very fascinating history. And speaking of history, I realized recently about half of the 10 lessons I teach, they are actually history lessons. But it's not dry history of wars and like that. It's Prabhupada history. Okay, Abhideya. And then if you like what you hear and see and experience, then you can ask your leaders to please bring the seminar back for the next phase. After Sambandha, knowledge of the relationship, then we're inspired and we want to commit more to the relationship by committing more to Prabhupada's mission. So lesson 4, his mission's roots, his ISKCON branch, his Varnashram challenge, finding our mission in his mission. It's all about getting absorbed in Prabhupada's mission, because in Prabhupada's ISKCON Sangha, that's the way we become intimate with Krishna, by committing ourselves to the mission. Other Sanghas may have different ways of becoming close to Krishna, but this is Prabhupada's way, committing ourselves to the mission. And then once we do that, Sambandha, Abhideya, Prayojana, knowledge, process, result. Then, the third part of the seminar, we deepen our love for Srila Prabhupada. And this is the most intense lesson of the whole journey. To love is to cooperate. Because this is the Kali Yuga. This is the age of non-cooperation. This is the age of quarrel, hypocrisy, disunity. So every time I teach this lesson, I myself am very challenged just teaching it. Because I have to practice what I preach. I have to cooperate. And this is an interesting lesson, the next one. Fictional Prabhupads. Before we look at the last lesson of how to access your individual, personal, foundational relationship with Srila Prabhupada, we do a little exorcism we cast out demons, we cast out misconceptions, impersonal and sentimental misconceptions that we may be harboring in our minds and hearts, even unconsciously. So we identify and dispel impersonal and sentimental misunderstandings about Prabhupada. And once we do that, then we can enter into an authentic relationship with Srila Prabhupada, and that's the last one. Again, this weekend we'll be doing the first three, because first things first. First we have to build our foundation. If we don't have a foundation, then anything we build on top of that, it's shaky. Just like I taught this seminar for the second time in Dubai. Have you been to Dubai? Anybody? No? Okay. So, interesting place. It's kind of like the Las Vegas of the UAE. So I went to Dubai, and they had me teach the Bhakti Vriksha leaders the seminar. And so I asked them, I said, Prabhus, how do you bring these Indian people here working in Dubai and working in the corporate world in a Muslim country, how do you bring them into ISKCON? Oh, first we have the aspiring stage, Prabhu. Aspiring stage? You mean you teach them how to aspire for a spiritual master first? They said, yes, Prabhu. I said, well, wait a minute, let's back up. How about a foundational stage? How about introducing them to everyone's foundational spiritual master, the founder Acharya, first? You know, the person whose books we're studying, whose Murti we're worshipping, whose mission we're prosecuting. How about that? Yes, Prabhu. They said they were being polite, but by the end of it, they got it. They understood that if prematurely you teach people to aspire for initiation, yeah, they'll aspire, and then they'll perspire, and then they'll expire without a solid foundation. Okay, so let's go right into lesson 1. Any question about the structure and the flow of the seminar? Again, we're going to be doing the first 3 lessons this weekend, which is tonight, the spiritual masters, tomorrow, the founder Acharya, and then our founder Acharya. Okay. All right. In this first lesson, we'll look at the oneness and difference among spiritual masters as merciful manifestations of our original and ultimate spiritual master. Who might that be? Our original and ultimate spiritual master. Krishna. Govindam Adipurusham. He is the original everything. Okay. So again, I took the title from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, which was written by Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami in his 90s, and he was going blind and his hand was shaking, but he had full faith in Guru and Krishna, so he was able to do the task. Now in the first 2 words, not even the whole verse, Kaviraj Goswami says, Bande Gurun, which means, let's see, Prabhuji, why don't you read that?
I offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master.
Right. You don't have to read the references, just that. Unto my spiritual masters, plural. And Prabhupada comments, he says, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami uses the plural here to indicate the disciplic succession. He offers obeisances not to his spiritual master alone, but to the whole parampara. Does anybody know who Kaviraj Goswami's initiating spiritual master was? Initiating, not instructing. No, it's instructing. Rupa Raghunath were his prominent instructors. Most people don't know this. It's interesting. Lord Nityananda, his Diksha Guru of the category of Godhead. And yet he doesn't just focus on Lord Nityananda, even though Lord Nityananda is so exalted, but to the whole parampara, the chain of disciplic succession, beginning with Lord Krishna himself. So what we do in this lesson, to deepen our understanding of Prabhupada's position as our founder Acharya. Let's first look briefly at how Prabhupada presents the Guru principle, Guru Tattva. It's a very brief survey of Guru Tattva. In the first chapter of CC, as one, the Guru is one, and as many. So here we go. First of all, we do this. Now, raise your hand if you know where Prabhupada is there. I know you know this. Somebody must know this. I'll give you a hint. Radhanath Maharaj lived there for a long time. I gave it away, right? That's where I first met Radhanath Maharaj, at New Vrindavan, milking cows, cooking milk sweets, worshipping the deity. And so, but this photo was taken the year before I met Radhanath Maharaj. It was in 1972. 1973 is when I met Radhanath Brahmachari at the time. I was Sureshwar Brahmachari. In 72, Prabhupada came to New Vrindavan because the devotees had invited so many VIPs, and so many devotees came, and so many journalists and scholars and politicians to meet the Hare Krishna Guru. Because in 1972, raise your hand, how old was ISKCON in 1972? 6. Yes, 1966 it started. And so we were still around for 6 years. So singing and dancing in the street, approaching people in shopping centers with Back to Godhead and books. We weren't going away. So people were curious, who's responsible for all this? So the devotees, the leaders, invited many prominent people to come to New Vrindavan in August, September 72 for what Prabhupada called Bhagavat Dharma discourses for 10 days. And they came. The New York Times came. Local politicians. The evening news came, with their cameras. And then right in the middle of this 10-day discourses was Janmashtami and Vyasa Puja. So Vyasa Puja day after Janmashtami, of course, is very challenging because everybody's up the previous day till midnight, fasting. Then you break fast at midnight, and then the next day you have to, you have to be bright-eyed. We say in America, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed to celebrate Prabhupada's Vyasa Puja. So before Prabhupada came and sat on that throne-like velvet seat, we were waiting for him. It all happened at the top of a hill in a farm called Bahulaban, which is one of the New Vrindavan farms. And the devotees had made a big pavilion at the top of the hill, and all around him was sloped. So there's this legendary godbrother of mine, I think you probably heard him on Desire Tree, Vishnu Jan Swami, sannyasi, and he was leading the kirtan. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And we were all just in Svargalok, we were just in heaven, following Vishnu Jan. And then Prabhupada arrived. Right behind the Vyasasan, he pulled up in a little yellow Volkswagen. The devotee drove him. And then Prabhupada came. He got up. He paid his obeisances. First of all, there was a big stage. And there was Radha Damodar deities. Maybe you've heard of Radha Damodar Vilas, the book about the Radha Damodar Sankirtan days. And then Jagannath deities were there. Prabhupada paid his prostrate obeisances. Then he hopped up on the Vyasasan and he started following Vishnu Jan Swami's lead. Mr. Jan was leading. Hare Krishna, and Prabhupada was just following. And it was great. But then, you know what happened? Prabhupada stole the lead. All of a sudden, out of the blue, you hear Prabhupada, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And we went absolutely mad. We just involuntarily got up and we started moving toward Prabhupada's Vyasasan, just crying and singing and just swooning. And then it was like Prabhupada opened up Goloka and just flooded the place with Krishna praying. We were just in total ecstasy. And then finally you hear Prabhupada say, Jai Om Vishnu Pad Paramhamsa Parivraj Acharya. And we just dropped to the grass, swooning. And the evening news is, the guys are there, the New York Times. And then Prabhupada, he gave the whole Vyasa Puja address for the guests. Because he knew that they didn't understand. Why is he sitting on that big seat? Right? This is America, after all. Egalitarian, all men are created equal, America, right? So why is this old man, who does he think he is, sitting on this big throne? So it's funny, if you have internet access and you go to YouTube and you type in 1972 New Vrindavan Vyasa Puja address, you can hear what Prabhupada said to these people, these guests. He starts off by saying, ladies and gentlemen, of course those who are my students, they know what is this Vyasa Puja. But those of you who are not my students, you may not understand what this is. And so Prabhupada just spends the whole talk trying to demystify the guru, because guru, you say guru in America, especially in those days, people think of flying carpets, genies out of a bottle, Aladdin's lamp. They kind of merge all these paranormal things into one imagination. So Prabhupada, he's just, what Prabhupada said? The guru is like a postman. Prabhupada said, post peon. The postman, the mailman. Because he knew that in America we worship the mailman. We say neither rain nor sleet nor snow nor darkness of night can keep this man from his appointed rounds. And they don't mean chanting rounds, they mean his going door to door, delivering the letter. So it was very shrewd of Prabhupada to compare the guru to that venerable American pedestrian, the mailman, post peon. And then he did it even further. He went further down, and he said, the spiritual master is the dog of God. God is the greatest person. Even a person of this world, if he's really great, you cannot approach him. It's very hard to get near him because he's surrounded by so many guards and secretaries. But then Prabhupada said, if you happen to see him, and he said, Mr. Ford, Mr. Rockefeller, because he's in America. He didn't say Mr. Birla or Mr. Dalmia or Tata. He said Mr. Ford, Mr. Rockefeller. If you happen to see Mr. Ford in a park walking his dog, and if you go up to Mr. Ford's dog and you give his dog, Prabhupada said, 2-cent lozenge, a 2-cent lozenge, like a little candy, or like a drop, like a cough drop, then very easily Mr. Ford is pleased. So then Prabhupada said, so I'm the dog of God. It's very difficult to approach Krishna, but it's very easy to please me. And then right on cue, a god brother of mine, maybe sitting right about where I'm standing, said, how can we please you, Srila Prabhupada? Tran Hare Krishna. And then big kirtan came up. And that was the end of the talk. Prabhupada bowed down. He walked behind the throne, this Vyasasana, into the waiting Volkswagen, drove away, and we had a big kirtan, but we had been fasting all day, right? Half day. So then what happened? And the cameras are still going, right? Spanning the length of the stage, there's this big cake, Vyasa Puja cake. And we were hungry young Americans, so what did? We charged the cake. Prabhupada gave this beautiful talk, right, about the position of the guru and what a guru is and guru parampara. And then we gave the purport. We ran at the cake. I remember I was a 25-year-old brahmachari, right? And I had my eye on the corner of the cake because that's where there's a lot of icing bunched up, right? So I went, I swiped the corner of the cake and I ran like I had like a football under my arm. And I was running broken field through all this gauntlet of brahmacharis. And they were chasing me, right? And then we rolled down, they tackled me, we rolled down the hill. And then I came out of the bottom of about 3 brahmacharis. And the cake came out of the bottom of me. The cake was powder. The ants ate the cake. Now this is going on all over the hillside. People swiping cake, people chasing them, and the cameras are rolling. And so maybe the New York Times didn't understand us. But Prabhupada understood us, because Prabhupada, meanwhile, he's back at his cabin about 2 miles away. And he says to his servant, Nanda Kumar, is there any cake? Oh, I'll go back and get you some, Srila Prabhupada. So he gets in the Volkswagen, he drives back 2 miles. This is like an hour later, you know. There is not a smudge or a crumb of cake left. So, a little afraid, Nanda Kumar gets back in the Volkswagen, drives back, and he says, he comes and he says, Srila Prabhupada, the devotees ate your cake. So maybe the New York Times didn't understand us, but Prabhupada understood us. Prabhupada said, that's all right, bake another one. So Prabhupada is the most merciful. Okay, so before we look at, we're going to look at, what is a guru? So the first thing I ask people, I say, when you hear the word guru in the media, I don't know about India, but in America, in the West especially, do you know how they use the word guru? Don't think anything spiritual. How do they use the word guru? Raise your hand if you know what I'm getting at. You know?
Expert.
Yes, very good. Read that. Read it out loud.
Popularly a person who has knowledge or expertise. Expert, example, a sports guru.
Right. People have their fashion gurus, their political gurus, their financial gurus. I was at the post office last summer in Gainesville, Florida. I'm at this place called the Krishna House, where we bring college students to Krishna. And I had a package to mail. It was a little complicated. So the postal clerk said, just a minute, Mr. Hall. To complete this transaction, I'm going to have to call my postal guru at the main office. So she did, and we finished it. It's passed into the language nowadays in a very secular way. Now, one step up from that secular usage of guru is the way the word guru is used in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when the Avanti Brahmana is saying he has so many gurus. You know what I'm getting at? What kind of gurus? Gurus in what? In...
Air is guru, earth is guru.
Yes, so that's all features of what? Features of nature, right? So Mataji, why don't you read that out loud? Can you read?
Yeah, a person who has knowledge.
No. Naturally. Right, yeah. We can learn tolerant, we say, Taror api sahishnuna. We can learn from a dog, obedience. Janaki Pandit says, Amedhyad api kanchana. We should learn how to take gold even from a filthy place. So we can learn from anyone, anywhere, if it's appropriate. Okay, a step up from guru in nature is literally. Raise your hand if you can tell us literally what the word guru means. Raise your hand. You know what the Sanskrit word guru means?
Heavy.
Ru means darkness, and Ru means dispels darkness.
Yes, that's a kind of, that's a kind of what do you say? A poetic definition of guru. Sometimes you read that, but literally it means heavy. Mataji.
Literally one who is heavy with knowledge.
Yes, it doesn't mean kilos, right? I can't do that very well. I'm kind of skinny. Okay, and now we're going to hear the perfect definition of guru from our foundational guru, our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada, and here it is.
Standard knowledge is received from the Parampara system. This Therefore, it is said Sotriyam. Sotriyam means who has heard from the Parampara system. Sotriyam and Vedati Brahmanishtam is hardly fixed up in the service of the Supreme Personality.
This is one of Prabhupada's favorite references. He would usually refer to the Upanishads to identify what a guru is. A guru is always coming in parampara. He doesn't make anything up. His qualification to be a master is that he's been a good follower, a good disciple. Yes, he walks Shrotriyam, he's heard, and Brahmanishtam, he walks the talk, we say. He practices what he preaches. He's fixed in what he's heard. He lives it. Now, even if we know what a guru is, do we know why we need a guru? There's a famous picture. Who can think of a Bhagavad Gita verse that goes with that image there? Raise your hand. Yes. Can we say it all together? Karpanya dosho pahatak svabhavak prichchamitvam dharma sambuddha chetak yatstreyaksyan nischitang bruhitan me shishyastehang shadimang tvam prapannam. Now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition I am asking you to tell me clearly what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered unto you. Please instruct me. When I was 18 years old, I had an Arjuna moment. I had a moment just like Arjuna had there. Shishyastehang. I was 18 years old. I had just dropped out of the university for the first time. I dropped out 3 times because I was so disappointed. I was looking for the absolute truth and I wasn't finding it in the university. So I was in an elevator with my father and I was really down. I was really disappointed. And I said, Dad, is this it? This is life? I mean, I'm 18 years old now. I'm grown up and this is it? This is life? So he looked at me and he said, yep, this is it. So I said, I didn't say Shishyastehang, I said, what do I do? It was the same thing. Please instruct me, right? Now unfortunately my father was not in parampara. So you know what he said? He was dead serious. What do you do? Well, you find something to do with yourself for the next 60, 70 years to keep from going crazy. Wow. I knew when I heard him say that, that's what he had done. And I knew there had to be more. So that started my search in earnest. Okay, so we're going to take a look at the first few lines of Prabhupada's purport to that Karpanya Dosh verse. Let's see. Mataji, why don't you read that? You know, Kali Yuga is such a dishonest season of time, a dishonest age, that even to learn how to tie our shoes, we need a guru. I mean, I know devotees wear sandals, but if you wear shoes, if you wear like walking shoes, your mother has to teach you how to tie your shoes. And yet when it comes to what Krishna calls in the Gita, Adhyatma Vidya Vidyanam, of all sciences I am the spiritual science of the self, we just try to make it up, right? You take a little here, a little there, you become an eclectic person, or you say yatamat tatapat, whatever you mut, that's the put. Whatever you think, that's the path. It's so dishonest. So we really need a spiritual master because we're conditioned, we're bound. And the bound cannot help the bound. We need to approach somebody who's not conditioned and bound up. So, Once we understand why we need a guru, it is important we connect with a genuine guru to whom we can surrender. But in one sense, all genuine gurus are really one and the same. So now we're going to look at how all gurus are one. You've heard that, right? Guru is one. That can be taken in an impersonal way, but it can be taken also in a legitimate, authentic, personal way. So there's Krishna, the original guru, playing a flute. He's in our heart, closer to us than our heartbeat and our breath. But because I've turned my back on him, I can't feel him. So can someone raise their hands and tell us, in what sense is all gurus one? Raise your hand. You know?
He represents Guru Tattva.
They're all one because
Guru Tattva, he represents Guru Tattva.
they present, okay, what are they presenting?
Krishna.
Yes, they're presenting what Krishna says. There's Krishna playing the flute. What came out of his flute went into Brahma's ear, and that came out as Gayatri. So, Prabhuji, why don't you read that? This is Prabhupada in The Science of Self-Realization.
How is the Guru one? Guru is one because he comes in disciplic succession. What Vyasdeva and Krishna taught 5,000 years ago is also being taught now. There is no difference between the two instructions. Although hundreds and thousands of Acharya have come and gone, the message is one.
Same message, just like the postman. He just delivers the message. He doesn't add anything, subtract to it. He doesn't make anything up. Now, one big theme of the seminar throughout the journey is how Lord Chaitanya and our founder Acharya, they really want us to all grow up and according to our capacity, be gurus. You'll hear that a lot. Now, if I said something to you, and you whisper it in his ear, and his ear, and her ear, and her ear, what do they call that here in India? Chinese whispers. I first heard that in Australia. You know, in America, you know, we call it the telephone game in America. Or sometimes they call it broken telephone. In South Africa, they call it broken telephone. So if that's true, if I say something to Prabhuji and it goes all the way around, then it gets back to me upside down and backwards, that's not very good. That means we have a ways to go before we can really authentically participate in the parampara. That means our senses are severely imperfect. Imperfect senses, subject to illusion, make mistakes, and then we try to pass all of that off as knowledge, and that's called cheating. That's the final defect. So who knows a verse where, okay. How do we become qualified to participate in the parampara? If it's true that we're so defective that it's tough, it's difficult for us to communicate things properly, how do we become qualified? Do you know? It's kind of a mystical process. I'll give you a hint. Here's a verse that gives it's two parts to the verse. The first part, it might sound very intimidating. Atak Shri Krishna Namadi. You know this verse? Nabhaved Grayam Indriyahi. Atak Shri Krishna Namadi. Krishna's name, form, qualities, pastimes, way beyond the range of our, what Prabhupada called our blunt material senses, mind, intelligence. So we hear that and we think, oh, then what hope do I have? How can I ever know Krishna? He's way, way beyond me. But then the second part of the verse tells us how we can know him. Sevon mukhe. If we serve Krishna, he jivadao. With the tongue, starting with the tongue, tasting Krishna Prasad, vibrating his glories. Then what happens? Svayam eva sparatyata. Then Krishna is in our heart, observing all this. He begins to reveal the true nature of his name, form, qualities, pastime. That's why as we follow the Bhakti Marg, it's ever fresh. If we're actually doing it properly, if we're applying ourselves properly, every time we chant, every time we read, every time we associate, it should be getting better and better and better. Now, in real life, we tend to go like this, right? Because that's the nature of the neophyte. Just like, do they have rowboats in India? Rowboats? You know, when you first get into a rowboat, you're, whoa, and you're kind of shaky, and then you learn how to sit in it properly, and then you can navigate in it. So when we first get aboard in the neophyte stage, it's kind of shaky. Can I really, follow the disciplines of bhakti? Can I really associate with devotees properly, But as we apply ourselves, as Krishna is pleased with our sincerity, He takes away our imperfections, and He begins to reveal what chanting Hare Krishna really is all about, what the deity is really all about, not just a statue, but Himself. Devotees, what they're all about. I'm hearing an electronic device. Is that yours? Okay. Check your electronic devices, if you would, just to make sure they're off. Okay. So here's an example of a quote, and this comes up again and again in the seminar series, because Srila Prabhupada and Lord Chaitanya and our Diksha and Shiksha Gurus, they really want us to grow up so we can not only receive shelter, but give it to others. That's the secret. Here's an example of how we're supposed to grow up and be gurus. Quote, because people are in darkness, we require many millions of gurus to enlighten them. Therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is, he said, that every one of you become guru. And if you think, but I have no qualification, how can I become guru? There is no need of qualification. Still, I can become guru? Yes. How? Whomever you meet, you simply instruct what Krishna has said. That's all. You become guru. So, that's Prabhupada's mood. So all genuine spiritual masters, as representatives of Krishna, are one in message. They're all saying the same message, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The purpose of life is to surrender, love, and serve Him. So in that sense, all gurus are one. But gurus also differ, obviously. Everybody's an individual. So now we're going to look at how is the guru different? Let's see. How about Mataji? You want to read this one? Read that.
By the initiative and instructing spiritual masters are equal and identical manifestations of Krishna, although they have different meanings.
Okay, so the oneness is there. Equal and identical manifestations of Krishna, the Shiksha and Diksha Gurus, although they have different dealings. So, what does that mean? Well, we have a hint from one of our previous Acharyas, whose name we sing every time we sing Gora Arti. Nara Hari Adi Kori Chamaradulaya. Srila Narahari Thakur not only was fanning Lord Chaitanya in Bhaktivinod's vision, in the Gora Arti song, but he wrote a very interesting book too, called Sri Krishna Bhajanamrita. 60-70 verses, a lot about guru-disciple relationships in there. So here is Srila Narahari Sarkar's example of different roles that different gurus play. You may think it's a little dated because this is a 500-year-old example, but just take the example for what it's worth. Quote, just as a faithful son may go out for earning money and subsequently bring to his father the wealth gained, do sons still do that? Maybe they do in India. I don't think they do it in America anymore. Okay, later the son may ask for some allowance from the father, and whatever he receives from the father, he is entitled to spend on his own enjoyment. So that's one half of the example, the analogy. There's the father and son and the money. Then Narahari Sakar says, Similarly, a disciple may hear some instructions from another advanced Vaishnav, but after gaining that good instruction, he must bring it and present it to his own spiritual master. After presenting these instructions, he should hear the same teachings gained from his own spiritual master with appropriate instructions, appropriate applications for him. Okay, so now I make an observation about that example. In ISKCON's global family, initiating gurus, they're like parents, and instructing gurus are like well-wishing relatives. At the same time, their prominence in our lives depends on the relationships we develop with them. Sometimes we become closer, or sometimes we are closer to our parents, and sometimes we become closer to our uncles and aunties. Nevertheless, if all are well-wishers serving cooperatively in our founder Acharya's mission, harmony prevails. Who can think of a previous Acharya not too long ago who was initiated by one person and then became closer to another spiritual master over time? Famous spiritual master in our Gaudiya line, who was initiated by one Bipin Bihari Goswami. I'm giving you hints now. Bhaktivinoda, right? And then who did he take shelter of later? Jagannath Das Babaji. That's why you see in the list, the cyclic succession, it says Jagannath Das Babaji, Bhaktivinoda, right? Jagannath Das Babaji was not his Diksha Guru, but he became his prominent Shiksha Guru. So that's life. That's what happens. Sometimes you just become closer to another person. But if all of those gurus are your well-wisher, then harmony prevails. It's only when there's jealousy and envy and all those material things that come in that there's problems. Okay, so that's one way gurus differ. They differ by the role they play. You know, there's one relationship you have with your parents, and then other relationships you have with your relatives. It's one, but it's different too. Another way gurus differ is this. How about qualification? How about, Prabhuji, you want to read that?
Person who is liberated Acharya and Guru cannot commit any mistake. But there are persons who are less qualified or not liberated, but still can act as Guru and Acharya by strictly following the disciples' success.
Wow, look at this. Prabhupada is saying that somebody who's not liberated can still be a guru by strictly following the disciplic succession. Somebody may say, oh, well, that's just a letter. You know, maybe who knows what the person wrote Prabhupada, and maybe Prabhupada just said that for a certain reason. But you hear the same thing in a Bhaktivedanta purport, which is usually weightier evidence for a point. This is from a Bhagavatam purport. Quote, this Krishna consciousness movement directly receives instructions from the Supreme Personality of Godhead via persons who are, here's the same phrase, strictly following his instructions. Although a follower may not be a liberated person, there it is again. Although a follower may not be a liberated person, if he follows the Supreme liberated Personality of Godhead, his actions are naturally liberated from the contamination of the material nature. That's the bottom line, strictly following. And then Prabhupada said, Lord Chaitanya therefore says, by my order you may become a spiritual master. One can immediately become a spiritual master by having full faith in the transcendental words of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and by strictly following his instructions. So, interesting, huh? So, gurus obviously differ by their qualifications. They're on different levels of advancement. But as long as they're strictly following the instructions of Guru and Krishna, they're bona fide. Just like the mailman. Prabhupada said he may be so unqualified in so many other ways, but if he just delivers the letter as it is, he's a bona fide mailman. Okay, let's see. Another way gurus differ, by commitment. Mataji, you want to read that?
By commitment, the spiritual master who first gives information about spiritual life is called the Vartma
Pradarshika.
Pradarshaka. The spiritual master who initiates according to the regulations of the Shastras is called the Diksha. And the spiritual master who gives instructions for education is called the Shiksha.
Okay, we're getting the mic out here. We're getting reinforcements. I was saving the mic for question and answer, but would it help if you read it with a mic? Yeah. I mean, you can read it anyway, but okay. Let's save it for question and answer because you can read it anyway. Okay. Now notice the flow here. Notice the sequence. Varva Pradarshika. That means an introducer, shows the path. Sometimes you see Pata Pradarshika. Diksha, initiator, and instructor. Listen to this. This is from the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. Krishna is saying to his friend Sudama Brahmana, "My dear friend, he who gives a person his physical birth is his first spiritual master. And he who initiates him as a twice-born Brahmana and engages him in religious duties is indeed more directly his spiritual master. But the person who bestows transcendental knowledge upon the members of all the see, I wrote this, I hand wrote this. But he who bestows transcendental knowledge upon the members of all the spiritual orders of society is one's ultimate spiritual master." In other words, the same thing. The flow is ultimately always to shiksha. "Indeed, he is as good as my own self." So why does it all flow to shiksha? Because we tend to, in ISKCON, we tend to give more prominence to diksha. But the flow in that reference from the 10th canto and in the CC reference is to shiksha. Why is that? Because whatever the guru is doing, even if the guru does not open his or her mouth, the guru is always teaching, always instructing. Again, Vishnujan Swami, he approached Prabhupada in Mayapur once and he said, "Srila Prabhupada, I would love to go down the Ganges, the Ganga, in one of those little boats and chant Hare Krishna with a Harinam party and inspire all the villagers, dock the boat in these little hamlets and chant Hare Krishna. But I don't speak their language. What to do?" So Prabhupada laughed. He said, "Oh, they don't care what you say. They don't care what you say. They just want to see how you behave." Achar is more important than prachar. Example is better than precept. Actions speak louder than words. So that's why it all comes down to shiksha. Instructions. Okay. Now. Now we look at how all genuine gurus are different manifestations of Krishna's mercy. We've seen how a guru is one, how gurus differ, but now we're going to see how they're all just different, really all different kinds of gurus are different expressions of the mercy of our original guru, the Lord in the heart, Krishna. So, Mataji, you want to read?
I first offer my respect for the obeisance at the lotus feet of my initiating spiritual master and all my instructing spiritual masters.
Famous verse from CC. Here's what Prabhupada says in the purport. Quote, "A devotee must have only one initiating spiritual master because in the scriptures, acceptance of more than one is always forbidden." Interesting, huh? Do we do that in ISKCON? Sometimes people take reinitiation, right? Prabhupada says that's forbidden. "There is no limit, however, to the number of instructing spiritual masters one may accept." In other words, it's like if the Diksha Guru is like a parent, you have your parents, right? And you're born. And for better or for worse, life goes on, and there's no need to get new parents. You already got your parents, right? But you can have unlimited uncles and aunties. That's what Prabhupada says. There's no limit to the number of instructing spiritual masters one may accept. And now here's a sentence from Prabhupada that really challenges us in ISKCON. Are you ready? Hang on to your bead bag, folks. Generally, a spiritual master who constantly instructs a disciple in spiritual science becomes his initiating spiritual master later on. I'm going to read it again. Generally, a spiritual master who constantly instructs a disciple in spiritual science becomes his initiating spiritual master later on. Is that generally what we do in ISKCON? Is it? Somebody's instructing, and then somebody initiates? Is that what we do? Not usually. Somebody comes into Chowpatty, for example, and who will they take a lot of shiksha from? Will it be, does Radha Swami spend a lot of time here? No? I mean, he does spend more time than most leaders that I know in his own place, to be fair. Or even Srila Prabhupada. In his time with us, in 12 years, Prabhupada circled the globe 14 times. He was always moving. You can hear one recording where a godbrother of mine is saying, Srila Prabhupada, I just want to be by your lotus feet. And Prabhupada says, oh, that will be very difficult. My lotus feet are always moving. Yeah. Who did Prabhupada depend on to know if somebody was really ready for initiations? Temple presidents. Prabhupada delegated that sacred responsibility of mutual examination of prospective guru and prospective disciple. This is Shastric injunction. That initiation should not happen unless there's an intense mutual examination. Prabhupada, of necessity, had to delegate that to his temple presidents, his local leaders. And when somebody would take initiation and then leave, especially if it was Brahmin initiation, Prabhupada would be furious. Why did you do this? It's time we have to boil the milk. We have to make sure people are serious, sincere. What's the use of so many followers if they just leave? So, observation. In this last sentence, the generally sentence, again, the sentence again is, generally, a spiritual master who constantly instructs a disciple in spiritual science becomes his initiating spiritual master later on. So in this last sentence, Srila Prabhupada indicates the natural, normative, guru-disciple relationship that is sustainable over time. It's very personal. It should be very local. To help our guru-disciple culture become more local and sustainable, we need to train and empower, what did Prabhupada say in that quote? Millions of gurus. We require millions of gurus worldwide to act as local spiritual masters, both initiating and instructing, as Srila Prabhupada has indicated. Now one may ask, isn't the initiator necessarily more important and qualified than the instructors? Let's see what Kaviraj Goswami and Prabhupada say about that. Let's see, Mataji, you want to read?
One should know the instructed spiritual master to be the personality of Krishna. Lord Krishna manifests himself as the super soul and as the greatest devotee of the Lord.
And now in the purport, Prabhupada says this. There is no difference between the shelter-giving Supreme Lord and the initiating and instructing spiritual masters. They're not different. You shouldn't think of themselves one higher, one lower. Shiksha, Diksha, same. And now Prabhupada raises that point to a warning. Listen to this. If one foolishly discriminates between them, saying one is higher, one is lower, he commits an offense in the discharge of devotional service. Because the essence of the Guru is the instruction. The essence of Diksha is Shiksha. And we're going to see that now, right in the Bhagavad Gita. Let's all say this together. You ready? Just try to learn the truth by approaching a spiritual master. Inquire from him submissively and render service unto him. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. Famous verse, right? Everybody knows Tad Vidhi Pranipatena. Famous verse. Now, why did I highlight some of the words in gold? Because first of all, Krishna is going singular here. A spiritual master. Inquire from him. Service unto him. And then in the second part of the verse, Upadekshanti, Krishna goes plural. The self-realized souls, plural, can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. In the translation, the word-for-word translation, Prabhupada says, they will initiate you into knowledge. And in the translation, here's what he says. The self-realized souls can impart knowledge unto you because they have seen the truth. In other words, the essence of initiation is that impartment of transcendental knowledge. There's an interesting... And that's what happened in Prabhupada's case. Prabhupada said after he met his spiritual master, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, who defeated his Gandhian objection. You remember when Prabhupada met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Abhay Charan Dey said, well, who will hear our Chaitanya's message? We are a dependent nation. No one will listen to us. We're a captive nation. So Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, no, Krishna consciousness is too important for a change in politics. It can't wait for a change in politics. It's the urgent need of every living being. So right there, then and there, Prabhupada told us he had a change of heart. He went from being a Gandhian to a follower of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And he said, I accepted him immediately. Not officially, that didn't happen until 11 years later, but in my heart. And I just heard another recording today. Prabhupada said, the real initiation was in that request that Guru Maharaj made of me right in the beginning, when just as I was rising from obeisances, he said to me and my friend Narendranath Mullik, you look like educated young men. Why don't you spread Lord Chaitanya's teachings in the Western countries, in the English-speaking countries all over the world? Planting the seed of the preaching spirit, he said that was the real initiation. Amazing, huh? Because there was a change of heart. And very dramatically, Prabhupada writes about that in the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, that chapter, Prayers by the Demigods for Lord Krishna in the Womb. You remember Vasudeva and Devaki are in the prison of Kamsa, and there's a big storm outside, and it's midnight, and first of all, Krishna appears in the mind and the heart of Vasudeva. Vasudeva becomes potent with Krishna meditation. He's full of Krishna consciousness. And then he transfers that to that fertile receiver of Krishna, that's Devaki. That potent giver transfers it to the fertile receiver. This is the Hare Krishna Immaculate Conception. You know how the Roman Catholics have this doctrine of Jesus' virgin birth? We have the same thing. So the transfer of consciousness to Devaki, her mind and heart became full of Krishna, and she became pregnant with Krishna. And in the purport, Prabhupada says, in this way Vasudeva initiated Devaki. That was an initiation, that transference of Krishna consciousness. That's what initiation means. That's the essence of the ceremony. Unless and until that happens, the ceremony, it's a show. It's a show bottle. It's not real. Okay, so let's see here. observation. Ultimately, it is Krishna, the original spiritual master. That's the point here. All gurus are different manifestations of Krishna's mercy. It is Krishna who delivers us. What does he say in 1866? Aham tvang sarva pape bhyo mokshayishyami. I will deliver you from all sinful reaction. When I was doing the basic research for this seminar in 2011, I was based in Hawaii, and I was emailing the late great Gopi Puranadana Prabhu, who at that time was our premier Bengali Sanskrit scholar, who gave us the Brihad Bhagavatamrita, and some of his Sandarbha writings have been published posthumously. So I was lucky that he was still with us until September of that year, because from spring and summer of 2011 I was doing the basic research. And the research never stops. I keep learning new stuff. So at one point I said, Gopi Puranadana Prabhu, who is the deliverer here? Is it the Diksha Guru? Is it the prominent Shiksha Guru? Is it the founder Acharya? I mean, Krishna says, I will deliver you from all sinful reactions. So who is it? So he got the email. He said, well, Sureshwar, I'm on a train in China right now. I don't have all of my references handy, but I know from studying Srila Jiva Goswami's Sandarbhas, I could not limit Jiva to one person, because Sampradaya Vihinaye Mantraste Nishpalamata. There's a verse in the Padma Purana that says, unless we receive even the Hare Krishna mantra in disciplic succession, nishpal, we won't get the real result of chanting Hare Krishna, love of God. In fact, sarpochishta payodyata, Sanatana Goswami says it'll be like milk touched by the lips of a serpent. It has poisonous effects. So from that exchange with Gopi Puranadana, I coined a phrase, because Gopi said you can't just limit it to one person being the deliverer. Ultimately it is Krishna, but through the whole sampradaya. So if they can say in Africa it takes a village to raise a child, I say it takes a sampradaya to raise a sadhaka. Yes. We need it all. We need Krishna ultimately the most. We need the Adi Guru. Who's the Adi Guru of our sampradaya? Lord Brahma, right? We need the previous acharyas. The founder acharya, you will see in this seminar, plays a pivotal role. It's around the founder acharya that all our other relationships thrive. Shiksha, Diksha, husband, wife, parent, child, friend and friend. As much as our Prabhupada is really the center of those relationships survive the ravages of time and they thrive. Ultimately we need each other to give each other Krishna. That's why Prabhupada said he started ISKCON. In the purport to Nectar of Instruction, text 4, what is it? Dadati pratigrinati guyamakyati pruchati bhukte bhojayate chaiva shadvidhang priti lakshanam. We exchange thoughts, we exchange gifts, we exchange prasadam. Prabhupada says in that purport, this is the whole reason he founded ISKCON, to facilitate these exchanges. Yeah. Okay, so here's how we end the lesson before we do question and answer. There's the clock. Okay. Here's how we end the lesson. We look at... Okay, I love this picture of Srila Prabhupada. This picture was taken of Srila Prabhupada in America, but before he started ISKCON, Prabhupada had the heart and the courage to go to the bottom of New York City. It's called the Bowery. He was living in the ultimate Skid Row, 94 Bowery Street. To get into 94 Bowery, Prabhupada had to step over the dead drunks. And if they were alive and they saw him, sometimes they'd roll over so Prabhupada could pass. So how did Srila Prabhupada introduce the oneness and difference of God and Guru in ISKCON? Prabhupada, in June 1966, after a real hard struggle of months and months and months, he started getting a few listeners in this Bowery loft. It was a loft apartment in Skid Row, you know, this hellish place. But an alternative newspaper called The Village Voice, an underground newspaper, heard there was a real live authentic Swami in the Bowery, so they went to interview Prabhupada. So a reporter named Howard Smith and his photographer Fred McDara, they did a beautiful piece on Prabhupada, and they were really impressed. And they said, there's a Swami on the Lower East Side of New York City. He's about to launch a major religious movement. They understood this person is really great. And so I love this picture because Prabhupada, he's looking very determined, but he's also looking very vulnerable, isn't he? He's all alone. He's getting a few listeners, but he's living with basically a crazy hippie who ultimately he has to run away from because the person took some bad LSD and attacked Prabhupada, and Prabhupada had to flee and call up one of his listeners, Michael Grant, who became Mukunda, who's now Mukunda Maharaj, and said, Michael, this isn't working. Can you help me get my own place? Can you help me get my own place? And eventually, Michael helped him get 26 Second Avenue. Now at 26 Second Avenue, all summer long they were chanting Hare Krishna, right? You've heard the recordings, you know, very simple, basic kirtans. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, no, really. And Prabhupada's leading them. And one of Prabhupada's first listeners, after 6 months, said, Swamiji, I've been chanting Hare Krishna for 6 months. He was a professor. And I still haven't seen the universal form. So what did Swamiji say? They called him Swamiji. That's all right. Keep chanting. Keep chanting. That was Prabhupada's perfect, you know, we call it crazy questions, perfect answers, you know. Anyway, Janmashtami comes. It's September 8th, 1966. And Prabhupada, Swamiji announces, so today is Krishna's birthday, his appearance anniversary, and we're going to fast. Ooh. Now don't worry, sometimes we'll chant in our beads, and sometimes we'll sing, and sometimes I'll tell you stories about Krishna's pastimes. Now try to fast. Now Krishna did not appear until midnight, so it's going to be a real test of our devotion to Krishna. Now if you're going to faint, don't faint. There's a refrigerator here, and you can take a little fruit, but try to fast. This is Krishna's Advent anniversary. And then the day went on, and then toward the evening, Swamiji announced, here's how it reads in the Lilamrita. Who's read the Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita? Anybody? Okay. Who's read the full Lilamrita? Not just, okay. You got to read the full. If you want to know your foundational spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, this is a must read. I think even before you read the Gita, or at least together. On Janmashtami Day, 1966, Srila Prabhupada announced on the eve of the first initiations, quote, initiation means that the spiritual master accepts the student and agrees to take charge, and the student accepts the spiritual master and agrees to worship him as God. He paused. No one spoke. Any questions? And when there were none, he got up and walked out. Prabhupada did this deliberately. It was a teaching tactic. Can you imagine? The spiritual master accepts the student, agrees to take charge, and the student accepts the spiritual master and worships him as God. And then he doesn't say anything. He lets it sink in, right? And they're all going. Any questions? And they were too stunned. They didn't say anything. And then Prabhupada walked to his right. There was a door, and it's a side door, and then he turned right and he walked through a courtyard, then up to his apartment. On purpose, he did this. And what's happening meanwhile, back in the storefront? What are the hippie Krishnas? What are they saying? Hey man, did you hear that? The Swami just dropped a bomb. Because all summer they've been hearing Swamiji say, if any spiritual master who says he's God is dog. He's as good as a dog. And now he's saying, tomorrow we're going to have initiation and the student worships him as God. So Wally, one of the listeners, Wally, he walks out of the storefront, 26 2nd Avenue, and he walks to a nearby mental hospital where a devotee has been tricked by his parents into signing himself in because he's the first devotee who shaved his head and wore a dhoti, and his parents think he's completely crazy. And the devotee's name is Keith. So Wally goes into this, it's a famous mental hospital called Bellevue Mental Hospital on the Lower East Side of New York. So Wally gets in visiting hours with Keith, and then Wally says, hey Keith, the Swami just dropped a bomb. He says, tomorrow there's going to be something called initiation. And he says, we have to accept the spiritual master as God. So Keith is pretty shrewd. Keith says, well, you know, we're already accepting everything Swamiji says as the absolute truth. We may as well accept him as God. What's the problem? Well, Wally's not quite satisfied. So he walks back to 26 2nd Avenue and he says to Howard, the person who said, Swamiji, I've been chanting Hare Krishna for 6 months, that one, you know. He's an English professor. He's got big hair, big beard, big large body. So Wally knows that Howard has the nerve to ask Swamiji. He says, Howard, will you please go up to Swamiji's apartment and ask him what he means? We have to accept the spiritual master as God. So Howard goes up there, and here's how the exchange reads in the Lilamrita. Does what you told us this morning, Howard asked, mean we are supposed to accept the spiritual master to be God? And Prabhupada says, that means he is due the same respect as God, being God's representative. Prabhupada replied, calmly. Prabhupada was waiting for this. He was waiting for someone to come to him for clarification. And then Howard says, then he is not God? No, Prabhupada said. And now we're going to hear the punchline. Prabhuji, read the punchline here.
God is God. The spiritual master is his representative. Therefore, he is a good as God because he can deliver God with sincere disciple. Is that clear?
And it was clear. And so they went ahead and they took initiation, the first batch. But you can bet, even though we don't bet, that's one of our vows, right? No gambling. You can bet, as we say in America, you can bet your bottom dollar, your last dollar, that if they didn't come to Prabhupada for clarification, he wouldn't have gone ahead with that. Because and done the initiation, because right in that Tad Vidhi verse, that just try to learn the truth verse, Prabhupada says, both blind faith and absurd inquiries are condemned. Prabhupada doesn't want blind followers. It's not a blind process. So that's very interesting. It was a great example of how Prabhupada was a master teacher. He was waiting for people to come to him to ask for qualification. You'll see that throughout the seminar, how Prabhupada taught. Okay. Lesson outcomes. By the end of the lesson, now don't worry, there are notes available after the weekend, so you're going to be able to get them from, I think, Radhika Ballabha Prabhu. Yes. Okay. So I know the memory is short, but by the end of this lesson, we should now be able to identify different usages of the word guru from popular to perfect. Explain why we need a guru. Explain how all genuine gurus are one, and also how they're different. Explain how all genuine gurus are different expressions of Krishna's mercy. And finally, we should be able to retell, how Prabhupada introduced the oneness and difference of God and Guru. We sing it every morning, Sakshad Harit Vena, right? He's to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servant of the Lord. Just like if, I don't know who he is, but if the American ambassador to India walked into this room, we're obliged to treat him the same way we would treat the president, because he's representing the president. Same idea. Okay, so transition before we do the question and answer. Tomorrow night, now all Vaishnav Guru-disciple relationships thrive under the shelter of the founder Acharya, the foundational spiritual master of a particular disciplic branch. In the next lesson, we'll examine the origin and development of the founder Acharya principle, with a focus on our own Gaudiya Vaishnav line. So we're going to do question and answers now, and I'll give you a little hint. Because our relationship with Srila Prabhupada is central to everything we do in Krishna consciousness, everything we think, everything we speak, everything we feel, everything we perform. There's a tendency in the question and answer session to want to talk about everything, anything and everything related to Prabhupada. But please try to focus on the points of the lesson. That's how it'll be productive. Okay. And if you do have a question, ask it, because after we say all glories to Srila Prabhupada, I don't answer questions after the class. You ask your questions for everyone's benefit. You don't come to me and say, Prabhuji, I didn't want to say this in front of all the devotees, but don't do that. When I'm done, I'm done. You can write me an email, and I'll give you my email address. But okay, so I'm going to sit down and be quiet. And where's that cordless mic? Okay. Now, who would like to be the mic runner? Usually it's a little... Okay. Usually we have a little boy or somebody who just runs the mic around. Okay. Yes.
One of the slides.
You got to speak into you got to turn it on.
In one of the slides it said that, when it was mentioned that, that the super soul, I'm paraphrasing, the super soul and the spiritual master are one in one sense. So in our routine lives, is it the right way to think like this? In our routine lives, whatever your spiritual master says, in whatever situation, irrespective, even if it is casual talk.
Even if what?
It is casual.
Casual.
So-called casual. I'm sorry, Prabhuji, if I'm asking something.
No, this is good. Prabhupada anticipated this question right in the Bhagavad Gita. Does anybody have a Gita? Gita, I'll just sort of, there's a famous verse in the 18th chapter of the Gita, text 57, Krishna says, in all your activities and for their results, just depend upon me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. And in the purport, Prabhupada anticipates Prabhuji's question by saying, now Arjuna had the opportunity to hear the Bhagavad Gita directly from Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one may ask, if one doesn't have that opportunity, which means everybody else, right? Then how should one follow Krishna, right? Okay, he's the Lord of the heart, and people all the time in the world say, God told me to do this, God told me to behead people, or God told me to, in the name of God, so many abominations go on, right? So Prabhupada says, how does one follow Krishna if he's not in Krishna's personal presence like that? And then Prabhupada talks about the role of the spiritual master. If one follows Krishna's instructions under the guidance of a pure devotee of Krishna, it's the same thing. But the whole thing rests on transparency. In text 75 later on, just about at the end of the Gita, Sanjaya says, Vyasa prasadat strutavan etad guhyam aham param. By the mercy of Vyas, Sanjaya says, by the mercy of Vyas, I have heard this sacred conversation between Krishna and Arjuna, right? And then in the purport, Prabhupada says, this is the mystery of the disciplic succession, that one is hearing Krishna through the transparent medium of the spiritual master and the whole parampara. So the whole thing, what you're asking, what you're implying in your question, if I understood you right, the answer, it rests on transparency. As long as I'm sincere, and as long as the spiritual master is bona fide, then we can take it. Because in that purport, Prabhupada says that one should think, I have been appointed to discharge this duty by Krishna. Whether it's sweeping the floor, like you said, it's casual, or any small task. This is how we actually get trained up to see the hand of God in every aspect of our life. And then what is the verse Prabhupada said? Should be the motto, the guide of our lives, whatever happens to us. Does anybody know? Whether it appears to be good or it appears to be bad, we take everything as Krishna's mercy. There's a famous verse. You know the verse? Tatenu kampang susumikshimano bunjana evadma kritang vipakam ridvag vapurpir vididhan namaste jivetyo muktipade sadhaya bhag. So Lord Brahma, he said this after he realized his mistake. He was trying to bewilder Krishna, all right? Taking all the cows, calves, and cowherd boys. And then he realized, oh, this cowherd boy is the supreme absolute truth. And he said all these beautiful prayers. So in the 14th verse of that chapter, 10:14:8, which Prabhupada didn't get a chance to purport because he left after 10:13. Luckily for us, he did purport at a Nectar of Devotion, page 91, under Expecting the Lord's Mercy, in the chapter Techniques of Hearing and Memorizing. And Prabhupada says there, okay, so the verse is, one who continues to offer obeisance from the core of his heart. No, I'm forgetting the verse. But anyway, the whole idea is that whatever comes our way, whether it appears to be good or it appears to be bad, we take it as the mercy of God. And how do we receive that mercy? Through the transparent medium of the bona fide spiritual master, who, as you see in this seminar, should be appropriately engaging us in Krishna's service. The whole thing rests on transparency. The surrender of the guru and the surrender of the disciple. It's really Krishna. He's orchestrating the whole thing, and it depends on how submissive we are to the will of Krishna through his parampara system. Yeah, so if I'm sincere, even if there's something amiss, I'll give you an example. 1974. There's some real nonsense going on in the New York Temple. 1974. Yeah. And some inappropriate foodstuffs are being offered to Sri Sri Radha Govinda in the New York Temple. And it was going on for some time. And then it all was investigated and the leader was removed and, it was a big scandal, right? And then Prabhupada wrote a letter to the New York devotees scolding the leaders for letting this go on for so long, for not being more proactive and vigilant. And congratulating is the wrong word. Thanking the devotees, the rank and file devotees, who also knew this was something wrong, but they didn't just leave, they just faithfully went about their service. Thanking the rank and file for staying, and scolding the leaders for not catching it sooner. So, anyway, if we're sincere, we're protected. Even if there's something amiss in a leader, I'm talking about guru or GBC or temple president, we're protected by our sincerity. And Krishna over time will reveal, the truth of what is what. Because Krishna is the ultimate guru. But that's the healthy way to think. That I'm in this situation, not for no reason. Krishna has me in this situation. And Guru Maharaj knows why I need to be in this situation. He's engaging me in this situation. And even if there's something amiss with the spiritual master, Krishna ultimately will protect us. Our sincerity will protect us. I'm giving you, both sides of it. Because it's not only in ISKCON that sometimes things happen, with spiritual masters. In this Narahari Sarkar book, this is written in Lord Chaitanya's time. There's a whole section on what to do if you have some trouble with your spiritual master, your initiating spiritual master, how you should approach the person, So it's these things go on in the material world. Anyway.
One more question.
Okay. Is it related?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not to the answer, but
We'll have to give others a chance too, but is it quick? Is it an easy one? If it's quick, other people have. What is it?
Before chanting, every day we first offer our, we chant Prabhupada. So I had a very basic doubt, if I may ask.
Sure.
That,
Wait a minute, now this is on the point of the lesson? Okay, now let's give preference to the point of the lesson. Remember I said there's a tendency to want to ask about anything and everything. Focus your questions on the points of the lesson. Admittedly, it was about the spiritual masters, so we'll get back to you if there's time. Okay, you have to eat these mics. You gotta put a little ghee on it.
And then the Diksha Guru and then the Shiksha.
Yeah.
So would the Patha Pradharshaka Guru also be a Shiksha Guru?
Yes. Yes, that's the point. That whatever kind of guru, whatever the guru is doing, the guru is always giving shiksha. Who was Prabhupada's Varma Pradarshaka Guru, do you know? Besides his father. His father... Narendranath Mullik. Prabhupada said, my friend Naren, he dragged me. I didn't want to go see Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. My father was so open and generous and liberal. He was always feeding these so-called sadhus, who were better at begging food than giving transcendental knowledge. They weren't really sadhus, but Father was so generous, he'd feed them anyway, just because they were dressed like sadhus. So Prabhupada said, I had a bad experience of sadhus, so-called sadhus, so I didn't want to meet another one. But my friend Naren, he dragged me, because somehow or other Prabhupada told us, I was always the leader of my group, and all my friends had met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, but I had not met him. But they wanted to know what I would think, because they always reserve their judgment until they hear what Abai thinks. And when Prabhupada told us that, you hear the devotees go, Jai Prabhupada, he's the leader, right? So, now to the best of my knowledge, Narendranath Mullik, he never joined the Gaudiya mission, but he was committed to his friend Abai as far as that, at least introducing him to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. So that's a kind of guru. And I'm sure his whole life Prabhupada felt a kind of debt to his friend Naren for dragging him to meet Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. And then Naren, after the meeting, said, so what did you think of Abai? Oh, he's wonderful. He's wonderful. I can see Lord Chaitanya's teachings are in really good hands. He can really give a good he can really understand what religion is really all about. Such a nice, saintly person I have met. That was the real That was the initiation, Prabhupada said, that change in heart from Gandhian to follower of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta. Yeah, the point is that any kind of guru is teaching. As I said, even if the guru doesn't speak, arguably the most powerful instruction is by example. Some would say that's the only teaching. What you do, that's the biggest, that's what speaks louder. Actions speak louder than words. But did you have something related to that, or?
Yes, it is one question related to when we use the term Shiksha Guru, we often use it a lot of times very generally for many people. So is there a particular qualification that someone needs to be a Shiksha Guru? Or just
Same. It's not different. They're equal and identical. If they're real, they're equal and identical manifestations of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That means they have to. Can you think of a verse of what a qualification to be a guru? How about Kiba Vipra? Kiba Vipra. Well, whether one is very learned, Kiba Vipra, Kiba Nyasi, or you're very renounced. That's not it. Shudra Kene Noi, you might be working in Shudra Varna, which is most of us. What's the modern word for Shudra, do you know? Employee. Most of us work in Shudra Varna. There's nothing wrong with that. That's most of us assist others. That's what a Shudra, there's a derogatory way to use Shudra, sure. But there's a legitimate way. It means assistant. Shudra Kenenoi, Ye Krishna Tattva Veta. If we know the art and the science of serving Krishna, say Guru Hoy. So that we have to know. And what did the slide and the script I read say? What's the qualification to be Guru, whether you're liberated or not liberated? What was the key phrase? Do you remember? Strictly following. That's no small thing to strictly follow. Strictly following. Then we can give shelter. Just like if someone gives class. Have you noticed this? If someone gives class and you know that person is practicing everything he preaches, you really love to hear that person because he's so sincere. He's walking his talk. Whereas somebody else maybe knows a lot of verses and a lot of this and that, but maybe he's proud. It's hard to hear a person if they're too proud. It spoils the whole thing. So, whatever the Guru's doing, the Guru's teaching. Whether it's introducing, initiating, instructing, it's really all about instruction. That's why Prabhupada said, Upadekshanti. In the verse, he says, can impart knowledge unto you. In the translation, in the word for word, Upadekshanti, they will initiate. That's the essence of initiation, is instruction. A change of heart based on hearing. Okay, we're going to let Prabhu ask his second question. Do you have any more? Prabhu, is it on the subject of the lesson?
I think so.
Hare Krishna.
I missed much of the lesson, so.
Is it on the points of the lesson?
I missed much of the lesson. So
okay.
I'll try.
Well, it's called the Spiritual Masters. Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, I heard recently that Srila Prabhupada was the first in our Sampradaya to introduce the system of first and second initiation separately. Is that right? And if so,
well, that's not quite on the point of the lesson. That's not really what we're speaking about. That's a little detail we can talk about later, maybe. Okay. On the point of on the slides and the points that I brought up, I'm giving preference to what I'm trying to review, because some of these things that I say and present from gurus, everything we're presenting in our Prabhupada Position Committee is based on Guru Sadhu Shastra to help our guru-disciple culture become more real and sustainable and personal. Yes.
How do you say that there are three spiritual masters? One is Prabhupada, another is the initiating, and third one is the instructor.
There's a lot more. There's many kinds of spiritual masters, but we just presented 3 there. Yeah.
Probably we have different relationship with the different like initiating spiritual master. We hardly meet and discuss. Even Prabhu Guru, he said like Narendra, like in Prabhupada's. But Prabhupada never took his shelter. He was grateful, but he was not taking his shelter. I mean to say, but there are some people who plays very prominent role in our life, like especially instructing spiritual master.
Right.
So we have like more binding to the instructing devotee than our initiating or even founder or even the one who guides us. The one who continuously guides us, we bend towards him more than even than to the initiating spiritual master. Sometimes our heart bends to that devotee more because he is taking care of us, he is guiding us in our day-to-day life. So is this a correct or is it wrong?
Well, that's why Prabhupada said, I read that line 3 times. Generally, the spiritual master who gives us the most shiksha becomes the initiating spiritual master later on. You remember that line? That's in a normal, natural, what does Prabhupada mean by generally? It means historically this is the way it works. There's a village guru, right, in old India, and he's giving a lot of instructions, and then naturally people get faith in him, and they end up he ends up taking them to the next step. He becomes their initiator. That's natural. But as I said, out of necessity, what did Prabhupada do? He was always moving, and he depended on his local, and these, local leaders. We were all, 1, 2, 3-year, 4-year devotees. The old devotees were. By the time Prabhupada left us, the oldest devotee in ISKCON was an 11-year devotee. But it's true, as you say, that normally the one who's guiding us more, wherever the relationship is, we tend to go there. Now, I'll give you myself as an example. Okay, so Srila Prabhupada is my initiating guru. But more, my identity is that I'm his. It's more than being his initiated disciple. What makes me a Prabhupada Nuga is that I'm his instructed follower. In other words, I read his books, I teach from his books, I write based on his books. But at the same time, who has been my best friend over the past 45 years, in a very human sense? The person in whose temple I joined in 1970 was Satsvarup Das Adhikari, who became Satsvarup Das Goswami. We've both been through a lot in the last 45 years. Through thick and through thin, we have been connected. And there's only meaning to our relationship is that we enrich each other's relationship with Srila Prabhupada. He's been my best friend for 45 years. Okay? But still, Prabhupada is my initiating guru. Okay, but more importantly, he's my founder Acharya. Because I'm his instructed follower. He lives forever by his divine instructions. So it's true, whoever's giving us the most shiksha, we naturally gravitate toward. But in ISKCON's guru-disciple culture, because Prabhupada is the person we all have in common, his spoken word, through the recordings, the written word through his books, there's really no problem if the initiator and the instructors are all trying to help us advance in Krishna consciousness. There shouldn't be any problem there. It should be a very harmonious family. There shouldn't be any competition or envy or territorialness or politics. Even though there are. Why are there? Because we don't recognize our common connection to Srila Prabhupada enough. That's why we're doing this seminar. full immersion in the life, teachings, mood, and mission of our foundational spiritual master really resolves a lot of problems. We begin to draw the same core identity from the same person. Yes, we have different Guru Maharajas, but we all have the same Prabhupada. And we appreciate our Guru Maharajas more when we know Prabhupada more. Then we understand why Guru Maharaj said that, why he did that. Yeah. So we're trying to help the Guru-disciple culture, and don't worry about it. If everybody's enriching our relationship with Prabhupada, they're the most important people in our lives. Even if you're Diksha initiated by Prabhupada, and we're like, you know, an endangered species now, right? Prabhuji, you had a question? Yeah. Okay, we have here you go. On the points of the lesson. Oh. Did that quit?
Is it better? Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for the class, Prabhu. I have one question. What is the difference between Acharya and Guru?
Well, Acharya means literally what? You tell me.
Literally means person who is known by Acharya.
Who practices, teaches by example, right?
By example.
Yad yad acharati shreshtas. Now, we should all be acharyas. We should all be examples for ourselves and for others. We should be inspirations. But not necessarily everybody... you're talking about an ISKCON now? Or just generally?
Srila Prabhupada is the Acharya.
Founder Acharya. That's a big difference, you'll see.
That's the confusion I have. Whether he is the only Acharya and everybody else are Gurus, or how do I understand it correctly?
Okay, I think your question I'll defer to tomorrow's lesson because we get into the founder. You're perfectly anticipating the next lesson. Thank you. You're a great listener. Yes, we have many Guru Devs, but we only have one founder Acharya, foundational Acharya. Yes. The master at whose feet all masters sit. Super Guru, if you will. Okay, if that's your question, then let's wait. And especially you'll see that in lesson 3 on Sunday. How Lord Chaitanya revealed to Prabhupada his own position. You'll see how the last thing from Prabhupada's mind when he came to America, the furthest thing from Prabhupada's mind was being the founder Acharya of anything. That wasn't not his intention. But that's what Lord Chaitanya obliged him to do. He compelled Prabhupada to make a clean break from the non-cooperation of the Gaudiya Math and start a fresh branch. You'll see that. And then when Prabhupada understood that, how Prabhupada gradually revealed his position to us, and it's brilliant how he did it. You know, brilliant teaching over time. He knew exactly how to do it because he was utterly and absolutely surrendered. So he got so much, empowerment from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and the previous Acharyas and the 6 Goswamis and Lord Chaitanya, how to reveal his position and how to, and we're still understanding it. That's why we're doing this seminar. You know, he is the unity amidst our diversity, so we need to get that. Okay, I'm feeling a little guilty. I think I want to ask your second question. Where's the mic? Unless there's a burning question in somebody's. It's okay. You got 4 minutes.
So before we chant in the morning, we recite Guru Pranam and recite Prabhupada Pranam. So I was thinking that this could be due to 3 reasons. Either we want to.
It could be what?
Due to 3 reasons. It could be 3 reasons why we.
3
reasons
reasons.
Either to develop a mood of humility, or maybe if Krishna knows that we are going to the Guru, Krishna is pleased, or is it that the Guru knows that we are chanting? What is it actually?
Well, it's the basic principle behind all this is what Krishna said to Arjuna in the Adi Purana. This is a nectar of devotion. One who says he's my devotee is not my devotee, but one who says he's a devotee of my devotee, he's my devotee. Why am I here in the material world? I'm puffed up. I had a better idea than serving Krishna. Maybe I could be the central enjoyer, right? So here I am, with this imitation body and imitation mind and imitation relationships and, this whole false God project, trying to be God, right? Doesn't work. So to be a Vaishnava means to me to do an about face and say, okay, I get it, yeah. What is it? Nama, not me, right? Nama, not me, isn't that? Obeisances, it's not about me. Even the Christians, they have this. Okay. So whatever the details are of, is it this or is it that, the main thing is, it's an expression of surrender and humility that I'm recognizing finally after eons of trying to play God in the material world, that I'm not the center of the universe. So, your question reminds me of a question. Again, I'm bringing up Vishnu Jan Swami. He asked Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada, is seeing Krishna everywhere an inference or is it a vision? And Prabhupada said, it is a fact. So you don't have to get too complicated about it. Just know that it's the ultimate yoga asana. Nama. Om. Yeah. For analytical answers, you'll have to go to other people. I'm not so analytical. You have to go to Bhakti Vidyapurna Maharaj. He could give you a great answer from some Purana or some Upanishad. You get a mood from me. You'll get a mood answer from Sureshwar Das. Okay, it's 9 o'clock. That was the introductory lesson. I hope I have provoked you into returning tomorrow night. That's the whole goal of lesson 1, is to inspire people to come back for lesson 2. And it does get better. It gets more and more, this was a very general guru lesson, and now we're going to see what a founder Acharya is really all about. It's extraordinary. And then finally in lesson 3, we get into how Prabhupada fulfilled that role like no one ever has. At least no one we know. Thank you for listening. Sweet Prabhupada dreams. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.